Have you ever felt that quiet sting when someone crosses a line, not with fists or open conflict, but with subtle words, small betrayals, or a look meant to cut deeper than it should? Life demands that we endure many things: the weight of disappointment, the passing storms of loss, even the pain of change. Those we can carry. But there are certain wounds that should never be invited into the soul. There are boundaries so sacred that if we allow them to be broken, it is not just our peace that suffers, it is our very sense of dignity, our clarity, our ability to stand tall in a chaotic world. The Stoics understood this well. They knew that strength is not built only by what we accept, but also by what we refuse to allow. To guard the fortress of the mind is not arrogance, it is survival. And if we fail to defend it, we teach the world how to diminish us. In this reflection, I want to walk with you through a truth that may feel uncomfortable at first, but freeing once understood. Stay with me, and together we'll uncover what should never be tolerated and why your peace depends on it. 1. The trap of manipulation. Have you ever noticed how the most dangerous chains are rarely made of iron? They are woven instead out of soft words, out of false smiles, out of a hand that pretends to guide you while it is really pulling your strings. Manipulation does not come announcing itself as an enemy. It walks in quietly, dressed as concern, disguised as love, sometimes even cloaked in the warmth of friendship. And yet, behind every gesture, behind every carefully chosen word, there lies the same intention: control. To bend you toward what serves them, while convincing you it serves you. The Stoics warned us of this danger. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Think about that for a moment. Freedom is not stolen with violence alone. It is surrendered when we allow another person to dictate how we feel, when we give them permission to twist our emotions until we doubt the ground beneath our feet. The throne of your mind, the one place that belongs only to you, is the first territory a manipulator seeks to conquer, and if you abandon it without a fight, you will not even realize you are enslaved. I remember once speaking with a man who had spent years in a relationship where every decision, every opinion, even every mood was quietly shaped by someone else. On the surface, his partner appeared endlessly supportive, always suggesting, always helping, always guiding him toward what seemed like the best choice. But over time, he found himself questioning his own judgment, losing confidence in his instincts, and hesitating at every crossroad unless her approval was given first. When the bond finally broke, he looked back and realized he had not been living his life. He had been living hers. And the tragedy was not only in the years lost, but in the fact that he had cooperated in his own captivity by mistaking control for care. Manipulation is subtle in this way. It feeds on the parts of us that crave acceptance, that long for someone to ease the weight of decision, that want to believe every word spoken in the name of love. It is like a parasite that thrives in the shadows, drawing its strength from our lack of awareness. The Stoics would tell us, shine the light of clarity upon it. See it for what it is. Do not excuse it. Do not rationalize it. Do not tell yourself it is harmless simply because it does not raise its voice. To tolerate it is to dig your own pit. And yet, Stoicism also reminds us that strength is not always about fighting with noise or rage. There is dignity in patience, there is wisdom in silence, there is humility in endurance. These are virtues. But alongside them must burn a fire, a boundary that cannot be crossed, a moment where the soul rises and declares, "This I will not allow. This I will not carry." Because the world already asks much of us. Life is already filled with storms we must endure, with pain we must accept, with burdens we must shoulder as part of the human lot. Why then would we willingly invite someone else to place chains upon our back? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The manipulator wants you to forget this. They want you to believe your peace, your choices, your worth depend on their approval. But the moment you reclaim the throne of your own thoughts, the illusion begins to crumble. Their game only works if you play along. The day you step back, the day you detach, the day you say with quiet certainty, "My soul is not for sale," is the day their power evaporates. We must be clear. Cutting ties with manipulation is rarely easy. It comes at a cost. It may mean walking away from people we thought we needed, from comfort that was never real, from patterns we once believed were love. But no cost is greater than losing your sovereignty. To stay bound is to betray yourself, to shrink into a shadow of the life you could live. To break free is painful, but it is the pain of tearing away falsehood so that truth may breathe again. So, if you have felt the tug of someone else pulling your strings, if you have noticed the quiet erosion of your freedom disguised as care, remember this: you are not powerless. Your silence can be a weapon, your awareness a shield, your boundaries a fire that no one may cross. Do not let fear of loneliness or guilt or the need for approval keep you chained. You were not born to be managed. You were born to stand, and when you do, you will find a strength deeper than anger, brighter than defiance. You will find the calm clarity of someone who knows they cannot be twisted anymore. That is the first step in guarding the fortress of your soul. Because once you learn to see manipulation clearly and cut it from your life, you begin to walk lighter, freer, truer. And only then are you ready to face the next threat to your peace, the betrayal of trust. 2. The wound of betrayal. Have you ever felt the cold shock of realizing that someone you trusted has turned against you? It is not just disappointment, it feels like a fracture running through your very being, because trust is not a small gesture, it is a sacred offering. When we trust, we hand over a piece of ourselves, believing it will be honored and protected. And when that bond is broken, it is not simply an offense, it is a violation of the invisible threads that hold human beings together. That is why betrayal lingers in our memory long after the words or actions themselves are gone. The Stoics understood this wound well. Seneca once wrote, "He who does not prevent a crime when he can, encourages it." What he meant was simple. To allow wrong without consequence is to invite it again. The same is true of betrayal. If we permit those who deceive us to remain close, if we continue to grant them the same access to our lives, then we are no longer only victims. We become accomplices in our own downfall. The first betrayal is their fault. The second is ours. Consider the story of a young merchant in the ancient world who entrusted his business partner with half his fortune to expand their trade. The partner spoke with warmth, shared in his dreams, and seemed as devoted as a brother. But when the time came, he disappeared with the money and left the merchant ruined. Years later, after rebuilding his life with tireless effort, the merchant encountered that same man again, now pleading for forgiveness and another chance. Some urged him to show mercy, to let the past go. Yet the merchant, recalling his suffering, simply replied, "Forgiveness does not require I invite him back into my home. My peace is not built on forgetting, it is built on vigilance." This is the essence of the Stoic response, not to grow bitter, but to grow cautious. Betrayal, then, is not unacceptable merely because it wounds us, but because of the truth it reveals. It unmasks the heart of the betrayer, showing us that they were never truly aligned with us in the first place. Epictetus warned, "When someone shows you their true nature, do not complain. Accept it as if it were a law of the universe." To deny this reality is to live in illusion, to cling to a picture of a person that never existed. Acceptance here does not mean approval. It means clarity, the strength to see things as they are and to act accordingly. And this clarity demands courage. Because to act on it is to close doors we once longed to keep open. To sever ties with those who have violated our trust is painful. It feels like cutting away part of ourselves, because in truth, that is what betrayal steals. The shared history, the shared future, the belief that you could lean on another soul without fear. Yet, to leave such doors unguarded is far worse. To tolerate betrayal without consequence is to let the fortress of your soul remain exposed, its gates wide open to those who have already proved their willingness to plunder. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The opposite is also true. If someone has acted against what is right and what is true, we must acknowledge it and guard ourselves. The Stoics did not advise bitterness. They did not advise vengeance. They advised dignity. The wise person does not let betrayal transform them into a cynic who trusts no one, but neither do they allow themselves to be deceived again by the same hand. They carry their heart carefully, aware that love and loyalty are precious, precisely because they must be placed in worthy hands. So, if you have been betrayed, understand this. The pain you feel is not weakness. It is proof of your capacity to trust, of the depth of your loyalty. That is something to honor in yourself, not to bury in shame. But let the wound become a teacher. Let it carve into your memory the lesson that not every smile conceals sincerity. Not every promise deserves belief. And when someone shows you their true face, accept it, not with bitterness, but with resolve. Because betrayal tolerated becomes betrayal multiplied. If you allow someone who has broken your trust to walk again through the gates of your life without change or consequence, you are not showing mercy. You are selling your peace. Mercy without discernment is not mercy at all. It is permission, and permission invites chaos. The task, then, is to rise with clarity. Do not waste yourself plotting revenge or nursing endless resentment. Those paths only chain you to the betrayer forever. Instead, act with courage. Close the door. Guard your dignity. Preserve the inner kingdom that belongs to you alone. In betrayal, you are reminded of one of life's harshest truths. Not all who stand beside you are walking with you, but in responding with strength, you affirm something greater, that while you cannot control the faithlessness of others, you can always control how near you allow them to come. And when you choose that path, you do not merely survive betrayal, you turn it into a boundary, a shield, a lesson written in fire that will protect you for years to come. That is why betrayal, as painful as it is, becomes the forge of wisdom. It reminds us to place trust wisely, to weigh character over charm, to value consistency over words. And once you have learned this lesson, you are prepared to face the final challenge. The deliberate disrespect that tests not only your patience, but the very dignity of your soul. 3. The weight of disrespect. Have you ever felt the sting of words that were not spoken in ignorance but in intent? Words crafted to cut, a look meant to belittle, a tone designed to remind you that someone sees you as less. There is a world of difference between the innocent misstep of someone who simply does not know better and the calculated cruelty of someone who chooses to insult. The first can be corrected with patience. The second is something else entirely. It is a deliberate attempt to wound, and if tolerated, it slowly erodes the foundation of who you are. The Stoics recognize that disrespect is more than a personal slight. It is an assault on order itself. For any community, any family, any bond to endure, there must be respect. Strip that away, and chaos begins its quiet descent. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." This is a profound truth. It tells us that when dishonor comes, we must not descend to the same pettiness. We must not poison ourselves with the very venom we despise. But at the same time, Aurelius never suggested that we should sit silent while dishonor becomes a pattern. To accept deliberate disrespect without resistance is not kindness. It is surrender. It is the abdication of self-respect, the quiet sale of the soul. Let me share with you the story of a soldier in Rome who was mocked daily by his commanding officer. At first, he bore it with silence, convincing himself that patience was a virtue, that enduring insult without complaint made him strong. But as the days stretched into weeks and the weeks into months, he noticed a change, not in his superior, but in himself. His spirit began to shrink. His comrades looked at him differently, seeing not resilience, but permission, that he had become the man whose dignity was for sale. Finally, he recalled the words of Epictetus, "You are a little soul carrying around a corpse, and if that little soul does not defend itself, soon it will be buried under the weight of others' contempt." With those words echoing in his mind, the soldier found his voice. He did not respond with rage or cruelty, but with firm resolve. He set a boundary that could no longer be crossed. The insults ended, not because his superior changed, but because the soldier finally demanded the respect his soul deserved. This is what deliberate disrespect does if left unchecked. It multiplies. A single insult tolerated becomes an endless chorus. A single moment of dishonor accepted becomes a reputation that others exploit. If a man allows himself to be mocked, dismissed, or dishonored without response, he is not practicing patience. He is teaching others that his worth is negotiable. Respect cannot be demanded from the entire world, but it can and must be required from those we allow close. The Stoic path here is clear. Do not mirror cruelty with cruelty. Do not waste your breath shouting back into the storm. Instead, rise with calm authority. Draw a line that says, "This far, no further." True respect does not come from loud defiance or endless defense. It comes from the quiet strength of someone who knows their own dignity and refuses to let it be trampled. And when you hold that line, when you choose to honor yourself even if others will not, something remarkable happens. The world begins to recognize that your presence is not cheap, that your soul is not for sale. So if you have endured deliberate disrespect, let this be your reminder. You are not here to carry the weight of someone else's contempt. You are not here to bend under the mockery of those who thrive on belittling others. You are here to guard the fortress of your soul. Build its walls, not with anger, but with clarity. Stand firm, not because you wish to dominate others, but because you refuse to abandon yourself. And if these words resonate with you, take a moment to affirm it. Drop a simple respect in the comments, and let it be your quiet declaration that you will no longer accept dishonor as normal. And if you want to walk this path with others who value dignity and strength, consider subscribing now, because together we are building a community where respect is not demanded with noise, but lived with clarity. Deliberate disrespect must never be tolerated, for when you allow it, you lose not only the moment, but also the slow erosion of your very self. Choose instead to preserve your dignity, to act with courage, and to guard your inner kingdom against contempt. For a man who cannot command respect cannot command himself. And when you learn to stand firm in the face of dishonor, you are ready for the greater journey, not only knowing what must be refused, but discovering how to live each day with the strength and peace of a Stoic heart. We have seen what happens when manipulation twists our emotions, when betrayal poisons trust, and when disrespect eats away at dignity. These are lines that must never be crossed, the foundations of the soul that cannot be surrendered. Yet recognizing the danger is only half the battle. The other half lies in learning how to defend ourselves, not with bitterness, but with clarity and discipline. This is where the Stoic path shifts from warning to practice. For if we do not build boundaries with intention, life will draw them for us. And so the first lesson begins, to create unshakable boundaries that protect our peace and silently teach the world how we are to be treated. 1. Build unshakable boundaries. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to move through life with a quiet strength, while others are constantly pulled, bent and broken by the demands of those around them? Often the difference lies in boundaries, the invisible lines that define where we end and where another begins. Without them, we are like a fortress with its gates thrown wide open, vulnerable to manipulation, betrayal, and deliberate disrespect. With them, we stand firm, not in hostility, but in clarity. The Stoics were not men who shouted at every slight or drew their swords at every offense. They knew that true power did not require noise. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is rooted in the ability to decide how others may approach us, what we will allow, and what we will refuse. Boundaries are not walls built from hatred. They are walls of discipline that protect the harmony of the soul. Think of a person who never says no. At first, they seem generous, endlessly available, eager to help. But slowly, their kindness becomes a tool in the hands of those who do not value it. Friends demand more, colleagues shift their burdens onto them, family members treat their time as if it is limitless. One day, they wake up drained, resentful, and strangely invisible. Why? Because they never taught others how to treat them. They mistook self-sacrifice for strength, when in reality it was only silence that others interpreted as permission. Contrast this with the story of a craftsman in ancient Athens. He was known for his skill, but also for the discipline with which he guarded his time. People admired his work and sought his help constantly. Yet when requests came that would distract him from his craft or violate his principles, he did not hesitate to say no. Some were offended, others confused, but over time, even his critics came to respect him. His refusal was not arrogance, it was clarity. He understood that to do great work, he had to protect his energy. And by protecting his energy, he preserved his dignity. Seneca once warned, "If you do not rule yourself, you will be ruled." Boundaries are how we practice this ruling. They are not just for keeping others in their place. They are also for keeping ourselves aligned with our values. When you say yes to everything, you dilute yourself until nothing of you remains. But when you have the courage to say no, even softly, you create space for your true self to breathe, to act, and to grow. Setting boundaries is not easy, especially with those we love. We fear rejection, conflict, or being misunderstood. But the Stoics remind us that peace is not found in pleasing everyone. It is found in living honestly with ourselves. Imagine a river. Without banks, it floods and destroys. With banks, it flows with power and direction. Your life is no different. Boundaries are the banks that give your energy its shape and force. Let me ask you, how many times have you let someone's words tear at your peace because you did not set a limit? How many times have you allowed disrespect to linger because you convinced yourself it was kinder to stay silent? The truth is, every time we fail to defend our dignity, we send a message, not just to others, but to ourselves. We say, "My worth is negotiable, my soul can be bargained," and once that message takes root, others will echo it back to us. Epictetus urged his students, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." To know who you are is to know what you will and will not allow. Boundaries are not selfishness, they are self-respect in action. They say, "I value myself enough to refuse what diminishes me, and I value you enough to be honest about the lines that cannot be crossed." When lived this way, boundaries become less about division and more about integrity. Of course, boundaries must be honored by the one who sets them. It is not enough to declare them once and abandon them at the first sign of resistance. To set a line and then retreat from it is worse than never setting one at all, for it teaches others that your dignity can be negotiated with persistence. To hold the line calmly and without anger is to prove that your self-respect is not a performance, but a principle. So, begin where you are. Reflect on the places in your life where you feel drained, diminished, or disrespected. Ask yourself, what line have I failed to draw? What chain have I allowed to be placed on my shoulders? And then, gently but firmly, create the boundary that should have been there all along. Do not explain endlessly. Do not justify. Do not plead. Simply hold your ground with quiet certainty. Because in the end, to build unshakable boundaries is not about keeping the world out. It is about keeping your soul intact. It is about teaching others and reminding yourself that your worth is not open for debate. And once you learn to protect yourself in this way, you will discover a freedom deeper than approval and a strength that no manipulator, betrayer, or disrespectful voice can take from you. And when that strength becomes your way of living, you are ready to take the next step. Not only guarding your boundaries, but learning the art of letting go, of practicing detachment without bitterness. 2. Detach without bitterness. Have you ever noticed how betrayal or contempt seems to linger long after the act itself is over? The person who wronged you may have moved on, yet their shadow stays in your mind. You replay the words, you relive the moment, and each time you do, it is as if you hand them the power to wound you again. The hardest part is not discovering you've been deceived or demeaned. It is finding the strength to walk away without bitterness clinging to your heart. The Stoics gave us the concept of apatheia. Often mistaken for apathy, it does not mean being numb or unfeeling. It means clarity, the ability to feel emotions without becoming enslaved by them. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That is the essence of detachment. You cannot control the betrayal itself, but you can control whether it continues to poison your inner world long after it has passed. Imagine a Roman senator betrayed by his closest ally. Lies were spread to advance the ally's ambition, leaving the senator disgraced. Friends urged revenge, But instead of plotting, he chose silence. He would not deny the truth of what was done, yet he refused to live chained to hatred. He focused on his duties, on what was still in his control. In time, his steadiness earned him greater respect than the betrayal ever took away. His rival, consumed by schemes, faded into obscurity. This is what it means to detach without bitterness. It is not weakness, it is mastery. Marcus Aurelius prepared himself each morning with words we still remember. Today I shall meet interference, ingratitude, arrogance, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance. He did not hope the world would be kinder than it was. He chose instead to expect betrayal and disrespect so that when they came, he could meet them calmly without surprise. This mindset robs cruelty of its sting. The danger of bitterness is that it masquerades as justice. We tell ourselves that by refusing to forgive, we are keeping the wound alive as proof of what was done. But Seneca warned, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. A single betrayal becomes 100 when we replay it endlessly. The enemy is no longer outside, it is within us, in the form of resentment. Consider a woman betrayed by her closest friend. The act itself hurt deeply, but what weighed her down most was not the betrayal. It was the constant revisiting of it. She rehearsed confrontations in her head, spoke to ghosts that would never answer. Her friend had left, yet she carried the betrayal everywhere she went. Only when she chose to release it, not excuse it, but release it, did she feel light again. That was not weakness. That was freedom. Detachment without bitterness does not mean letting people walk over you. It means closing the door firmly, but without burning yourself in the fire of hatred. It means setting boundaries without letting contempt define your soul. It says, I will not beg for apologies. I will not cling to resentment. I choose to walk forward with my dignity intact. The lesson is simple but profound. When someone reveals who they are through deception or disrespect, believe them. Accept it as reality and then step away, not poisoned, but clear. To detach without bitterness is to guard the integrity of your spirit. And once you have learned this art, you are ready for the final task. Building a fortress of self-respect so strong that no insult, betrayal, or manipulation can ever breach its walls again. 3. The fortress of self-respect. Have you ever noticed how some people seem unshaken even when mocked, betrayed, or manipulated, while others collapse under the slightest slight? The difference is not that life treats them more gently. The difference is that they have built within themselves a fortress no insult can penetrate. That fortress is called self-respect. Without it, every harsh word, every act of betrayal, every manipulative gesture cuts us to the core. With it, those same attacks may sting, but they never reach the heart. The Stoics spoke often of this inner strength. Seneca wrote, "The man who respects himself is safe from being despised." What he meant is clear. When you know your worth, the opinions and judgments of others cannot define you. Self-respect is not a prize someone hands to you. It is something you cultivate daily, like a fire you tend carefully. It is built each time you live according to your principles rather than bending to pressure. It grows stronger each time you say no to what dishonors you, and yes to what aligns with your deeper values. Picture a young scholar in Rome who longed for the approval of his teachers and peers. Whenever he was slighted, he felt crushed. Whenever he was praised, he soared. His spirit rose and fell with the winds of others' opinions. But one day, after being mocked publicly by a rival, he turned to the writings of Epictetus and read, "If you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize you have compromised your own integrity." That struck him deeply. From that moment, he began to live differently. He focused not on applause, but on whether his actions were in harmony with his values. Slowly, the mockery of others lost its power. He discovered that dignity, once rooted within, cannot be stripped away by scorn from outside. This is the essence of strengthening the fortress of self-respect. You do not wait for others to treat you well before you believe you are worthy. You decide you are worthy, and then you live in a way that confirms it. When you carry yourself with discipline, manipulation cannot sway you. When you walk with clarity, betrayal becomes a lesson, not a life sentence. When you honor your principles, disrespect reveals more about the speaker than about you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." His words cut to the heart of what matters. Your peace, your integrity, your soul, these are worth more than the fleeting approval of anyone. To preserve them, you must be willing to stand alone if needed. Because self-respect is not about arrogance, it is about alignment. It is the unshakable knowledge that you are living in truth with yourself. So ask yourself, do you guard this fortress, or do you leave its gates open to the whims of others? Do you let disrespect linger until it eats at your confidence? Do you allow betrayal to convince you that your worth has diminished? Or do you rise each day with the quiet strength of someone who knows they cannot be bought, cannot be broken, cannot be defined by anything outside themselves? To strengthen the fortress of self-respect is to build a life where dignity is non-negotiable. It is to stand in storms and still remain whole. And when this fortress is secure, you no longer fear manipulation, betrayal, or disrespect. For they may knock at your door, but they will never find a way inside. And with that foundation, the journey turns to its final promise, living not only with strength, but with peace. At the end of it all, remember this truth. A person who cannot command respect cannot truly command themselves. Respect is not something we beg for, nor something granted by chance. It is born from the way we choose to live, from the boundaries we hold, from the dignity we refuse to surrender. The Stoics knew that to tolerate manipulation, betrayal, or contempt is to quietly abandon your own soul. But to rise, to stand firm, and to live with integrity is to declare that your worth is not negotiable. If this message speaks to you, let it be more than just words. Make it a practice. Guard your mind, honor your heart, and protect the peace that no one else can give you. And if you want to keep walking this path of strength and clarity, I invite you to subscribe so you never miss the lessons that will keep your inner fortress strong. Drop a simple comment saying, "Stand tall," to remind yourself and others that dignity is not for sale. Every small act of self-respect is a step toward freedom, and each day you choose it, you are already winning. Stay steady, stay clear, and stay unshaken. The next time we meet, we will go even deeper into the wisdom that helps you live with peace in a chaotic world.